In the 1960s, the ladder of opportunity in journalism was largely closed to her and other women. Here is a person who eventually wrote six national best-selling books. And yet, after we were married and moved to New York, she was told repeatedly by various editors, we do not hire women to be writers.
Steve Roberts there delivering the eulogy for his wife, Cokie Roberts, here in Washington yesterday, surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues of Cokie. And I'm happy to be joined by some of those friends and colleagues here at our roundtable, which says a lot about that latter today. Donna Brazile, a Fox News contributor and former DNC chair, and like Cokie, a proud Louisiana native.
Who that?
Karen Tumbledy, political columnist for The Washington Post and a longtime friend of Cokie. Mara Liasson, she worked side by side with Cokie for years at NPR, where she serves as national political correspondent. And our Karen Travers, Cokie mentored her here at ABC from her time as a college intern at This Week to her current role as an ABC News correspondent. We're going to get to our thoughts on Cokie in a little bit, but we're going to start with the news, just as Cokie would have wanted us to do. And Karen Tumbledy, I want to start with you and pick up on Iran. You heard what Secretary Pompeo said, because the president's maximum pressure campaign seems to be having the opposite effect of what they wanted it to do, despite what Secretary Pompeo says. So the question is, can the president let Iran get away with this attack?
Well, I think that is one of the things that a lot of other countries are going to be wondering about this week at the UN General Assembly. The president's messaging has been so inconsistent on this, truculent one moment, talking about peaceful solutions the next. I think that he is confusing a lot of people in this country, but also a lot of other countries around the world.
And Mara, the president doesn't really appear to know how he wants to respond, but he has two things in mind. He doesn't want to disrupt the economy, certainly, and he doesn't want to go to war. For someone who said they would get us out of wars, and I would add to that, he doesn't want to look weak. All of that is pretty hard to juggle.
You can't do all those things at once. His critics say he talks loudly and carries a small twig. The president wants the benefits of looking tough, but now this is real life. And he created a maximum pressure campaign to really put the screws to Iran. And what did he think would happen after Iran pushed back? He says he's locked and loaded. He also says he doesn't want a war. He sends a couple hundred troops to Saudi Arabia. The message to Iran is, hey, you got away with this.
And Karen Travers, what are you hearing? You do a lot of radio two ways, as we call them, with radio hosts around the country and get such a great sense of what people are thinking. What are they asking you about this? Are they tuned in?
There was a big difference from Monday to Friday. On Monday, after the president's locked and loaded tweet over the weekend, there were a lot of concerns that a military strike was imminent and a lot of questions about what the U.S. interest was here. What is the national security interest that's at stake? As the president dialed back from that, talking about wanting a peaceful solution, the question I heard most this week was a credibility question. Why should we believe the Trump administration when they say that Iran absolutely did this? And why should we believe the Trump administration that the strategy they're going to pursue is correct? The president himself has questioned his own intelligence agencies. The president has misled on issues big and small, including most recently the Hurricane Dorian map. So that was referenced a lot this week to me.
And they haven't presented any evidence.
They have not. So without the evidence, the question was, why should we trust them on such a big national security issue?
And Karen, I want to turn to the whistleblower complaint and how that's playing out and what the president can do. He said just a short time ago, I hope they put this conversation out. How big a problem do you see this for the president?
The president has been talking about this now for 3 days. He's been tweeting about it. And his strategy here seems to be deflect and distract. So on the one hand, he said he had a beautiful, perfectly fine conversation. He didn't say anything wrong. But if he did, it doesn't matter anyway. And we've heard this strategy from the president before. He's calling it a witch hunt. He's trying to muddy the waters in such a way that if you're a supporter of the president, you just think this is not a big deal. And it's the latest thing that the Democrats and the media are going to make a big deal out of. If you don't support the president, you think this is...
And Donna, this has got to be personal for you. You had your emails hacked in 2016 by the Russians. When you look at this, what do you say?
Well, first of all, I say never again. I mean, we should not allow the president of the United States to put his personal and political interests above the interests of our national security. Once again, the president is diverting attention now, saying that the investigation should be on Joe Biden, when we've known for months the president directed his personal attorney, Mr. Giuliani, to figure out if there was some there. And now the president is attacking the whistleblower, attacking the intelligence agencies. He's doing all of this when he can simply say, Congress should do their job. Congress should allow the whistleblower to come forward, and we should see the entire transcript.
Karen, if he puts this call out, do you think that ends it?
No,
obviously, depending on what it says.
Well, it depends on what it says, but this is qualitatively different from everything we talked about in the 2016 election, because this is a sitting president using the powers of his office. And if what has been reported is true about this conversation, I mean, he is not
kind of credible and urgent.
And he's not benefiting from collusion. He's inviting a foreign power to collude. This is all very, very different from any qualitatively any of these controversies that we've seen before.
But is it a way for the Trump administration to talk about Joe Biden? You saw Secretary Pompeo immediately turn it to Joe Biden.
Sure, this could end up being like the 2020 version of birtherism. Ooh, Joe Biden did something bad in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have investigated this formally and said there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. My question's about today, he says he wants the transcript released. Does he really want that, or is that, yes, I'm going to release my tax returns and sure, I'll talk to Bob Mueller? We don't know. But if it is released, this is also different from 2016 in that it's simpler for people to understand. This is one conversation. There is a formal whistleblower complaint through the system.
And by the way,
leaker.
We don't know for sure that whistleblower complaint was about Ukraine.
Right, or about this conversation only. We don't know. But at least these are small numbers of pieces of evidence that Congress is trying to get their hands on, and it involves the president directly talking to a foreign country, not just benefiting from some vague, vast scheme of Vladimir Putin's.
And Karen, I want to turn to you for the 2020 race, which we're going right into full speed. And this new Des Moines Register Iowa poll out yesterday, which shows Elizabeth Warren overtaking Joe Biden, a 7-point jump for Warren from June. She seems to have all the momentum now.
She does. She's the only one that really seems to have the momentum. And I think it's striking to see all of the candidates' events over the past couple of months. The race is steady, except for Warren with that jump and Joe Biden dropping several points. But there was a number in there that I thought was also interesting, that 2/3 of likely Democratic caucus goers say they haven't made up their minds yet. So this is all very early. There's a lot of time for that to change, but certainly that boost is fitting the narrative of the past couple of weeks for Elizabeth Warren, that she's on the rise right now.
And Donna, what do you see?
The race is coming into sharper focus, and anything can change over the next 2 months. But the other story this weekend is that Cory Booker has signaled to his supporters that if he's unable to raise $1.7 million over the next, 5 days, 6 days?
He's out, right?
He's out. Doesn't have the fuel.
And Karen, Warren and Bernie Sanders have also been trying to turn the tables on Joe Biden, arguing he's the one with electability concerns. Take a listen to Warren this week.
There's a lot at stake in this election. And I know people are scared. But we can't choose a candidate we don't believe in just because we're too scared to do anything else.
So can Warren and Sanders make that case against Biden effectively?
I think at this point, again, if you look at these Iowa poll numbers, the percentage of voters who say they are open to Warren's message is absolutely enormous. So she does have, I think she has something I'd rather have at this point than a lead in the polls, which is the steady gains. And again, we're still over 120 days till those caucuses. It tends to break late. But what she's finding is that voters in the Democratic caucuses are very open to her message.
Yeah, and I think what we are seeing is if it ends up being a Warren-Biden race, we're going to see a clear ideological contrast. Not only do you see Warren pushing back against Biden's claims of electability, you see Biden pushing back on her policies, how she's going to pay for it, Do people really want their private health insurance taken away? I think you're going to see a clearer and clearer contrast.
And Karen, I want to take a look at how the president is doing. The New York Times this week out with the story, "For Trump, a time of indecision." They write, "Mr. Trump has made clear he wants to accomplish something big, but seems stymied as to what it might be. He has remained on the sidelines as divisive issues are debated and is treading water even on possible staff changes he wants to make for fear of how things play." Does he need to accomplish something else with his re-election pitch?
He either needs to accomplish it or at least be able to talk about it in a way that convinces his supporters. So the economy is the centerpiece of his re-election message, but there are troubling signs there. And polls are showing that voters are starting to give him more criticism than credit for it. So those are worrying spots for the president and his team. But on doing something big, it's why you see the administration trying to rush money to build something of a border wall, just anything, so he can say, I built that. It's why you see these conversations over the past couple of weeks about gun measures, despite the fact that there's no indication that the president is on board with what his administration is shopping. He told supporters at a fundraiser this week in California behind closed doors that he's a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and that's what he's going to stick to.
Okay, and I'm going to put 2020 aside for a minute so we can reflect on our wonderful colleague, Cokie Roberts. And Donna, I want to start with you.
Wow.
Louisiana woman.
Louisiana. You know, when I first met Cokie, I was 21. I got up here to Washington, D.C., and Cokie Roberts found out that I was working for Gillis Long as an intern, and she said, "You're from New Orleans." I was born in New Orleans, raised in Kenner. And I said, "Yeah, but the line was too long to work for your mom." And she said, "I'll shorten it." And the next month, I was in Lindy Boggs' office. She was an amazing woman. Not only did she pull that ladder down for young women like myself, but she kept it down, and she kept pushing me. She had a drive like no one else. And, you know, this is the crawfish cornbread dressing. And on the back is Cokie's handwriting, where Women's Leadership Forum, National Archives. Cokie constantly pushed us to be our better selves. And she's on my wall, along with Maya Angelou, Coretta Scott King, Shirley Chisholm, and so many other women who dared to make a difference in my life. A great mentor and a wonderful friend.
And Karen, you texted me right away after Cokie's passing and said that when you struggled through cancer, she planted herself at the end of your bed.
It was, yeah, you know, I think that what her listeners, what her viewers could sense about Cokie was very genuine with her. And I was not one of her closest friends, but I can tell you, I mean, to look up in my hospital room after cancer surgery, and there is Cokie holding a big armload of reading material and a big fresh load of gossip for me, which is I needed just as badly at that time.
As did she. She loved good gossip.
She loved good
But
gossip.
the thing about Cokie was, and again, she was so generous in sharing her insights. She had such a deep understanding and respect for the institutions of Washington, which isn't very fashionable these days. And also, she knew the backstory of everything.
And Karen, I want to turn to you because you have known Cokie since you were an intern here. Look at you now.
Yes.
And she's always been so proud. But when I read your remembrances of her, those were so touching. And I thought, how did Cokie ever find the time to do so much for all
All
of us?
been saying that this week. She must have had more hours in the day to spend time with you at the hospital and to do her work, to write all these books. Our twins were born very premature in 2015, and they spent
Matt and Kelly.
There they are. They spent 3 months in the NICU at Georgetown, and our friends and family were signing up to deliver us food, and Cokie signed up to give us food, and she made it homemade, Louisiana, of course, and she dropped it off on her front porch with a text that just said, "Travers, the food's on the porch. You don't have to come out. I know you're busy. Plus, there's wine, because I know that's what you need right now." And our friends saw the sign-up sheet where everybody had picked their nights, and we had friends say to us, "Is that the Cokie Roberts that's bringing you food on Thursday?" And I said, "It is the Cokie Roberts." She was that amazing. She was so kind and gracious and looked out for me. She called me almost every week then. So it wasn't just the work. It was the life, the amazing mentor and role model she was outside of this building.
You know what? She slept very few hours.
I don't know how she did it.
She slept very few hours. She was one of those people who slept very few hours and didn't need it. But look, I became a reporter at National Public Radio because of Cokie Roberts. I was a newscaster. I wanted to be a reporter, and she by some miracle, kind of decided that I should be her number 2 in Congress when she was the congressional correspondent. And I got to work under her, learn how to do it, which is, she gave me an amazing education. We would go into the majority leader's office in the morning for the pen and pad gaggle, and she would grill him, because I'm sure she knew him since they were both in diapers. And then I'd trail behind her in the bowels of the Capitol, because she knew every single tunnel and special way. And then she'd go and talk to one of the workers in the cafeteria, who she'd also known since she was a girl, and she treated them with the exact same respect and dignity.
And she had such a moral clarity about everything, and I wouldn't be here without her. None of us would.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.